Welcome to LaTB, the only podcast that comes with a free Bandits bonus.
Express delivery included.
LaTB, where MMA and UFC get silly. This is the LaTB podcast.
Welcome back, episode 222. We going to San Antonio. Remember the Alamo. Remember where it all happened. It's a fun 13 card bout we
I
have.
thought you were going to say, remember San Antonio, remember the Alamo, remember to like and subscribe to LaTB.
That's actually a way better intro than me. I missed out on an opportunity there, but remember to follow us at LaTB.
Like Davy Crockett, I have your back.
Thank you very much.
Isn't that the Alamo? Was it Davy Crockett?
Or Daniel Boone.
Or what's the other guy from Pikes Peak?
Ooh, I don't remember.
All the American heroes, Paul Bunyan.
Exactly. Didn't he and the Blue Ox died there too as well?
I don't think that's Pikes Peak. I think that Paul Bunyan made Pikes Peak. Him and Ox were in a fight.
I think you're right there.
Pushing each other around.
So a little bit of American mythos there.
Oh yeah, back to San Antonio.
Back to San Antonio. It's where it all went down back in the day. But now we're going to have 13 card bout. Again, remember, you're going to find us at LaTB_MMA, officially changed on Twitter. If you're looking for Emmanuel personally here, you're going to be finding me at Zoltanite, at Weak Neck Baby for Cheney, to be getting all of that other mixed media type of stuff in there. Tends to be MMA oriented, but you'll get
Yours
some funny
is
memes.
Better MMA oriented. I know the tweet before I put it out, and I'm like, I'm gonna lose followers. Return. Tweet it.
And still tweet it because it's your own. That's why we got our own LaTB account. That's MMA 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And that's definitely cashing out overall. So we got big plays to come up. Do you got anything left to get into this card? We've been hitting it hard for the last few weeks, and we don't have time to slow down because we got another fight card coming right.
Yeah, I think everybody's been liking us talking the shit at the end because then they can hear it. Then I think people like us getting right into it.
At 135 pounds, we have debuting Domingo Peralta coming off of the Contender Series 11 months ago against Felipe Corrales, who debuted against the Brazilian fighter. The 8-1 Corrales ended up losing to debuting Freitas in a fight that you will never remember. I went back and watched it and almost fell asleep. It was midday and I was at work, and that's how bad it was. It was a lot of wrestling, a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Felipe comes in with a wrestling-heavy game plan. He has good strikes, but takedown defense, really not the best. And on the ground, he's scrappy coming from the Nogueira scene, but there's just flaws. He can come out on top at times, but more often than not when he's on bottom, he gets stuck down there, not really dangerous off of his back. And striking, he does really well with 3 and 4 punch combinations, but he always shoots on a takedown, even if it's not the most beneficial thing to do. So his fight IQ is a little skewed there. He's a active, heavy takedown type of guy, but this is a Brazilian takedown type of guy. Did like his shots. Actually, even into the third round, he seemed to keep coming on in his last fight a lot more than the other Brazilian, but he still decidedly lost that for being tentative in the first 2 rounds. Corrales, overall, he's like a C+ type of a fighter. He has a lot of potential being such a young man at 25 years old. We're going to see a lot of growth in him, especially after losing his last one, but against such low-level competition, just don't have tons of confidence. I'm not 100% sure if he's still at Nogueira, Team Nogueira. I feel like he is in Brazil, but again, the fight IQ, iffy. If you've been following the show for a while, you know I've been talking about Peralta for a while. I've been like, where is this guy? What happened? He ended up getting hurt after his fight that he won on the Contender Series, 8-1. Peralta came in against Vince Morales, who has since got a contract in the UFC and fought twice. Won one, lost one, outside of losing that. Peralta eating that first round when I'm going back and watching it, and the reason that was such a memorable fight is because it was a Contender Series fight ever. Go watch that for all Contender Series fight, and it was just really a turning of the tide. Really like to see a young man like Peralta at 29 years old get some trials and tribulations, break his nose, get hurt, and still come back in that second round and dominate on the ground. On the ground, Peralta is really nasty off of his back in transitions and sweeps as well. Good takedowns. Power, but he does get hit a little bit. And I feel like I've been hyping him a lot, like Nardiev potentially, where I'm expecting such greater things. But the fact that Vince Morales, who was also a contender, made it such a close fight, maybe I need to take more into that in consideration. But we have one of the biggest favorites of the entire night for a reason, and I just see more check marks everywhere for Peralta, with better competition being over here in the stateside. I think Peralta gets it done in round 3. I could even see him finishing it round 2 via submission, but I am going to go TKO. I just think it's a lot more pressure and harder strikes. Ended up taking it for Peralta, the decided favorite. Who do you have in this fight and why?
Kolares, I don't know if he came in heavy before and was fighting out of his weight class in his last fight, and now he's fighting in his truer weight class, or if he just got eaten up so bad, he's like, I'm going to cut the extra 10 pounds, which will really be bad on his cardio and maybe him potentially being knocked out, like you're saying. I'm going to big fat stay away from this fight. I can't believe Pilarte is so expensive on DK. Like, that's insane to me. Neither guy has proven themselves, and they both seem, Kolares, of anything, he does seem like a guy that can stifle and make a fight a boring fight. Mm-hmm. And that could happen to this, especially these guys. We see them that they come in like huge submission heavy guys, and their submissions don't really hold up to the UFC defense sometimes. Not that they won't against, I'm not saying anything. I don't know anything about these fighters. I'm a little naive to them. So I'm going to go with Pilarte because of how heavy he's a favorite, but I'm just going to go decision.
Minus 250 for the favorite, 9,400 for Peralta against Felipe Corrales is 6,800. The plus 195 underdog is definitely going to have an uphill battle there. As far as DraftKings, usually this is a LaTB stay away. Are you going to play to that, or are you going to be thinking what the odd makers have, it being a decided over 90 to 100 points?
That's what I said. This is the first fight, big fat stay away for me.
Big fat stay away. I think I'm going to be playing this in that 20% type of range, but only on Peralta's side. I don't really give Corrales too much of a chance there, but that LaTB rule has done us better than worse most of the time. I agree. So take that for what it's worth out there, fans. Moving on to 135 pounds, we have Mario Bautista coming in against Jin Sun. The Korean fighter, South Korean fighter, is 9-3, getting his debut loss against Peter Yan. No mercy, and definitely put a clinic on him 9 months ago. The Korean Zombie disciples coming out of Korean Zombie MMA, and he fights the atypical zombie type of fashion. Go back and watch that Yan fight, eating shots all day, all night, smiling through most of it. His hands being so incredibly low. I was really surprised that Yan wasn't stunning the Korean fighter as much as often as he was hitting. And Korean fighter just biting down on that mouthpiece and throwing 4 and 5 punch combinations in the third round really showed a good gas tank. He actually took down Peter Yan 2 times with good takedowns, good doubles reactions in there. Those did, though, happen in the end of the first round, beginning of the second, because by the third round, Sun was reaching for those shots as gross as I've ever seen someone in there. He definitely was bending over at the waist and just sticking his arms out, so a good striker is going to capitalize in the clinch, throw a knee in there eventually on Sun. But that 26-year-old chin, you're not going to see too many guys that rely on it so much, but in time, I feel like it's going to go into that the bigger punchers he fights, the more and more he's going to get. He's going to show the wear and tear. It's going to be a heck of a fight. I think this is going to be a bloodbath. The Korean fighter hasn't went to the ground much, and on his regional scenes, it was against such low-level competition that just can't really trust him on the ground. He's definitely tends to be a striker. Will even throw up a left kick every once in a while. Has straight punches and a good gas tank. Somebody who's always going to be tough in there, and even made Yan look a little more down to earth compared to some of the other high-level competition Jan's been in there with. I think Sun can make a good showing for himself as far as his UFC career. I just don't know if he goes he climbs into that title contender type of reign anytime soon. I think he's a Polo Reyes type of guy where he's always going to give you a hell of a brawl by keeping those hands, again, waist level from the first round. It works for a lot of guys, but he started to get hit a whole lot more once he got in with a UFC caliber fighter.
I heard that the idea of keeping your hands high is for boxing only, because for UFC you got to keep your hands low, especially the worse your takedown defense is, so you can kind of be ready for the takedown even more than the punch, because that's where certain guys it'll cost them more.
Right.
I forget who I heard talking about it. Maybe Michael Bisping.
That's a great point. It is a really, really good point. It's an MMA fight. Everything changes, and I guess I'm being a little more one-dimensional and thinking that's the way it's supposed to be.
But you're kind of right. When guys leave it down too much, I mean, you can't rely on your chin being a block.
Luke Rockhold.
Yeah.
Like, it's different type of chins at that point. But yeah, the damage Elkins. It adds up after time. On to Mario Batista.
I didn't say anything about it. Sorry. You were going to... Oh, I didn't know you didn't break down Batista yet.
Bautista came in on short notice, being 6-1 out of the MMA lab. The 26-year-old lost his debut and only fight against Corey Sandhagen on short notice, about a week, 5 days. Came in and didn't really give a showing of himself at all. Sandhagen took him right down and after a little bit of striking and ended up submitting him via armbar. But going back on Batista's tape, being an MMA lab guy, we usually tend to like that. He's got good takedowns when he's up on the cage against level competition. I believe he has some bouts in LFA and other regional scenes that actually against winning competition. On top, he has heavy hips. He moves and advances fairly well on the ground as well. Striking, he's long for the division. It doesn't have the reach here, but he's 2 inches taller. I think that this young guy losing to Sam Hagen doesn't look as bad now that we're seeing where he's at. And on short notice, we got to give him a little bit more credit here, at least in my book. But all around, if Bautista decides to use those double leg takedowns, get to the ground and get on top, I don't see Soon getting up. Peter Yan couldn't do it, but Peter Yan tends to keep it striking if he can a whole lot more. I think Bautista on the ground in general has a clear avenue, and even striking, I think he's going to surprise Soon. Even though I would not recommend that Bautista tries to keep it standing, I think, again, it is getting it to the ground. I actually think Bautista can get it there, and once he's there, I think he looks good. Even striking-wise, Bautista can take a shot. I think he comes in with a good game plan. I'm trusting the MMA lab here. This is going to be a profile fight. I think one of these guys could cash big money, but I'm going to go Bautista submission round number 2. Who do you have in this fight and why?
I'm actually going with Sun decision. The competition level that he's gone against so far is just that much better to me. I think Peter Yan's just a step above Corey Sandhagen right now, and we're not watching. Corey Sandhagen's kind of laying stagnant. Like, he's still a hot prospect, and I love him, but he hasn't, I think, did he injure himself? Did he miss his last fight? What happened with Corey Sandhagen?
No, I think he won against Lineker in Florida. We watched that fight.
Oh, yeah. No, wait. Yeah, okay.
His nose blew up in the 3rd round. It was a volcano of blood. But he's fine. I mean,
but he hasn't fought since then.
He has not fought since then.
Yeah, he hasn't fought since
Correct.
then. I guess, Corey Sandhagen's up there. Peter Yan's a very hot prospect. And to go to decision, that was a short notice fight, wasn't it?
I'm not 100% sure on that. I think they might have been over in Europe somewhere. So I don't think it was necessarily. I think 6 to 8 weeks. I could be wrong on that. Those European 3 a.m. cards sometimes.
I have some decision. Both these guys are still a little new to me, even though both have gone against hype trains in Sandhagen and in Yan. This will kind of be the fight that weighs both guys out to me going forward. I have some decision. I'm going to stay away from this fight, but I do like what you're saying. Batista's not just a walk-through fight by any means.
Exactly. At minus 205, you're going to end up paying $9,100 for San against Bautista's plus 165, $7,100. I see a submission. I might lean back towards a decision, Bautista. More of that dirty type of split as well, because I like what you're saying. I do think that it's going to be a tough fight for both fighters. I just like the fight IQ a little bit more in Bautista right now. For 7-1, I'm going to be playing him on a good amount of spots, probably around 40 to 50%. Soon, he's got power. Maybe 10% of my cards just because I want to hedge myself with if he lands one of those heavy shots. He throws good 3-punch combinations.
The other thing, Batista, the guys he's going against have like 1-0 records.
0-0 a couple guys.
Yeah, 3-1, 4-5 little, where the guys 22-10, 29-15. Not that doesn't say everything, but it does say something. It does say something. I don't know. I think this is one of those cards that the deeper we get into the night, the more I'll be playing. If they do have a televised version of it, which I don't think they will, I'll go a little heavier. I've noticed that DraftKings only does that with the pay-per-views.
Pay-per-views, yeah. I've been noticing that as well, and I wish they did it for these, but maybe they're taking they don't want to go in as deep as some of us. They don't like to get in that deep, because it's still 6 fights, regardless of the fighters.
Yeah, they should just try to make that money.
100%. At 135 pounds, we have Rayborg coming in against debuting Gabriel Silva. Rayborg coming in with all sorts of issues against the perfect 7-0 LFA champ. Silva just winning 3 months ago. Prior to that, he's had a couple other bouts in FEN. He's got some decision wins over 15-4, 4-1 type of jungle fight fighters. The Brazilian 24-year-old is also coming out of that Team Nogueira. Scrappy guy, likes to get it to the ground, has a lot of submissions. The competition level, not all that good. His striking is serviceable, but his takedowns and takedown defense isn't the best. I saw a lot of like outside rip and trips that worked for him on the couple fights I saw on the regional scene and against the wrestling of Rayborg. That's not going to happen. It's just Rayborg is one of those atypical American wrestlers that we like to bet against jiu-jitsu guys. He doesn't really get manhandled off of his back. A lot of guys have issues when he's in their guard. He throws a ton of ground and pound. Striking, getting a little bit better. But the biggest thing for Borg being 11-4, coming off of a 2-fight losing streak to Demetrius Johnson and Casey Kennedy, a decision 3 months ago, it's that weight cut. It's that discipline, those weight issues. Rayborg specifically has come out and said that if he does not make weight for this fight, he will never fight again. And for that matter, all of his next fights. But is he in that John Lineker type of range with the UFC where they just proved where, hey, how many times has Rayborg fallen out of a fight? Day before the fight.
Yeah, hurt or, yeah, you're right, make weight and then...
Not make weight by a lot.
Yeah, or not make weight, but then right before still fall out.
Right.
Like get his paycheck knowing he wasn't going to fight. Like...
Ton of stuff.
Like a little bit of a pain in the ass.
He has some head issues about him.
It's a good comparison to John Lineker.
And that's where his spot is right now. I think that if he didn't make that statement that he did saying that he would just retire if he missed weight again, the UFC might have let him go. Again, the Texecutioner, what's this guy? The Tasmanian Devil is going to be the local favorite as well in here. He is a big favorite.
Taz Mexican Devil.
My bad. Taz
You're
Mexican.
like something like that.
He gets in there and, again, just likes to really get it done.
What's his name?
There is a Texecutioner.
James Vick. Right?
I think you're right. That's why I saw it. It's subliminally in there.
Yeah.
Was doing some tape study earlier. But, I mean, there's not a lot to break down in this. It's the wrestler going against the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy with limited striking. So, I got Rayborg winning a decided decision here. I don't think you need to go too much further into that. Who do you have winning and why?
I agree, and I'm even hoping this is like a gimme fight a little for Rayborg to help him crawl out of this hole. I think the fans want to like Rayborg. He just makes it so hard. You make it hard to love you, Rayborg, and he had all the problems personally with his kid.
Yep.
Yeah, I hope Rayborg comes out and he's the Rayborg of, yesteryear. It's almost like the Rayborg that he used to be that we keep expecting was the Rayborg that we haven't seen in over 2 years. So... let's hope Rayborg is back. He'll be back. Rayborg's back. But he does tend to lay out some kind of point. So are you going to put him anywhere?
That's the hard thing. For 9,300 minus 300 favorite, it's tough.
What's his point average?
His average is 67 points.
Oh, that ain't worth it at all.
But he fought Demetrius Johnson, and in his last loss, where he was a 9,400 favorite on DraftKings, he only got 57 points. So Rayborg is iffy. His highest scores are in the 115 type of range, but he will score 50, 24 points, 57 points in there. 9-3, I don't think I'm going to be playing Borg much. If out of the both players I'm playing someone, it is Borg. I don't think Silva's live pretty much anywhere here, betting-wise or anywhere. So 10% if Borg at all, if I end up having a bunch of other crazy underdogs throughout the night and I'm able to afford them, maybe. But the more I've been noticing, the more I'm leaving money on the table on DraftKings when I have 500 left. I'm like, leave it alone. Don't pick Borg 9-3 who gets 26 points eventually and screws me in the night where I could have still kept my
right.
underdog.
That matters all the time. You don't need to spend all your money.
100%. So I'm going to be limited on Borg there. What are you going to do for DraftKings as far as Borg anywhere?
Same. I'm not going to put them where I can afford them. It will be on a lot less than that.
Great call. We're going to go into the 125-pound division with Roxanne Modafferi coming in against Jennifer Maia. Both of these ladies fought each other previously. I believe it might have been even in the Invicta series that they fought each other, not in the UFC, but still
in the Tough House
a rematch. I don't even think in the Tough House. I think I might have even been Strikeforce that long ago. That's how long these ladies have been in here.
Damn.
The 30-year-old Maia is 16-5-1. She tends to like to get it on the ground, is a dirty type of splitter in here, lost to Liz Carmouche in her debut, beat Alexis Davis in this decision. She's a Jane of all trades, master of none, and nothing really sticks out. She likes to get it to the ground, and on the ground, she rabbit punches you with ground and pound. Against Modafferi the first time, I believe she won that fight. I could be off on it. Let me look back into the history books there, but either way, Maia tends to be a low scorer in there, and Roxanne Modafferi tends to be at that Spider-Man type of meme that you were throwing out long ago. They just kind of mirror each other, and Modafferi ended up winning the first one, and it was via decision, split decision. So I think Modafferi does the same thing as she did in that first one. On the ground, she's just a little craftier and sweeps more. And those same rabid punches Modafferi throws, she just throws at a little higher percentage in volume, even striking, even though she's getting hit. She doesn't have to worry about Maia's power at all. So I think Modafferi wins this. I think it's a dirty, gross fight. I think it's my little Cabbage Patch Kid, but that's not hard to see.
This might be your dirty split.
Right. I still got Modafferi in the decision, but it's going to be a stay away. I see it being like a 60-point fight for the winner max, maybe 40 for both. It's not a good one. I'm not excited for this one, honestly.
No, it seems low scoring and uneventful, but that's, for some reason, people like Roxanne Modafferi and people will watch her whole fight. They're like, oh, look at her. Like, look. Like, it's my friend. It's her first fight. It ain't her first fight. Yeah, this is the less brutal of the two woman fights tonight.
Agreed.
Modafferi decision. I'm all stay away from this low scorer.
How likely do you think this is to finish?
Oh my gosh, I think it's such a low percent.
Right? That's what I'm like.
Such a low percentage.
So it's going to be
if
like...
If it's a finish, Roxanne ground and pound.
Interesting. On DraftKings, for the slight underdog right now, we have plus 105 Roxanne Modafferi, 8,000 against Maia's minus 135, 8,200 on DraftKings. It's Modafferi for me as well there. Like I'm saying, I just think she's a better
They're looking at
hand.
the record of Maia and being like, oh, she's a far superior fighter, but Modafferi's gone against harder competition and on short notice. But you know what, too? A little bit with Modafferi, I'm giving her some credit for that Antonio Shevchenko win, and both of us think that is not great.
100%. 100%. I also think the age is playing a role here with Modafferi's 36 against a 30-year-old. They met each other when she was, 26, 27, so she might have learned more.
I'm switching to Maia decision, even though I think the finish could be more likely Roxanne, but I'm going to stay away from this fight.
She has tightened up those deficiencies that ended up losing it for her, but I think Modafferi's also on a bit of a weird run. I'm not going to be playing this heavy. I'm not going to be betting this fight. Again, this is a dirty split. Dirty, stinky split. For a reason. I think it's going to be hard to tell. The Brazilian shoot-based fighter against the Syndicate MMA, do you think Texas plays a role here? Do you think it's America versus the world? Kind of how Texas is in general?
But Texas hates the rest of America.
True, but they defend us proudly regardless. They do tend to boast that.
I don't know.
They defend Americanism more than anything. Do they not?
I don't know.
I think they're more nationalist than any other state.
I don't know. I think they're statist. I think they're like, F New York City. New York City! They're like,
That's
those
not
California queers.
Dude, that ain't salsa. That's where I was going to go with that. That ain't salsa. That's from New York City.
New York City! I don't know. I think because Texas, everything's bigger and greater in Texas.
Exactly.
You know, if you boiled down, you know how if you boil things down, it gets a more condensed flavor and more, like it just gets
It's
saltier,
more American.
sweeter, and
That's what I'm saying. That's where I feel like
no,
they
it's
were.
not American. It's Texan.
It's Texan.
Don't you
Well,
have
that's
Texas
American.
friends?
Yo, yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
they
In the military,
don't have
quite
an
a few of
American
them.
tattoo anywhere. They have Texas tattoos. All of them. I have hipster friends. I have country friends. I have just normal housewife friends. All of them love just Texas. They're not pro-America. They're pro-Texas.
Interesting.
In a way that I
So-
would say like somebody from Florida might be pro-American and less pro-Florida.
But do you think a Texas crowd would cheer the Brazilian fighter instead of the American fighter, regardless of the American?
It depends if the Brazilian fighter trains out of Texas.
Okay, I could see that for any case in that matter, but I think the crowd sways the other way. So moving on to the next profile fight at 205 pounds, we have Smiling Sam Alvey coming in against Kilson Abreu. Abreu being 14-3, coming in against Magomed Ankalaev in a decision 4 months ago. He ended up losing that bout. The former N1 submission artist is out of Curitiba, Brazil, fighting out of Evolucion Thai MMA. The 26-year-old is really jiu-jitsu based. That's what he likes to do. He actually has...
I'm going to put out a tweet that says, put Maya everywhere, submission, but I'm going to put up a picture of Damian Maya. Because if I can get anyone to jump.
That's horrible.
All right, sorry.
But back to Abreu. He's a young 26-year-old fighting 4 months ago. Ended up losing that bout against Magomed, who people had a lot of hype on. Paul Craig ended up doing work on him, but have since gotten 2 wins in a row there. He showed deficiencies in his takedown defense, did the Brazilian Abreu. Ankalaev, once all 5 shots were defended, Abreu had to stay striking, and striking is definitely limited for Abreu. He is growing, but he just leaves his head on the center line at times. Is very 1 and 2 punch dimensional. He'll throw kicks in there every once in a while, but that's because he doesn't worry about going to the ground. He's not that amazing on the ground, though. He does like to advance to position once he uses that single leg. He'll use that single leg and then run the pipe, as they say in wrestling, or he'll even try to switch to a double. But after pretty much those 2 chains, he's really limited in his takedowns as well. And again, after he gets stuffed a few times, he pretty much quits. Again, the striking's not there. He can flurry with 4 and 5 punch combinations every once in a while, but even that gas tank tends to be a little 2 rounds-ish. By the 3rd round, he's definitely huffing and puffing in there. Against Smiling Sam, the 33-12 type of fighters coming off a 2-fight losing streak to Jimmy Crute, TKO, Nogueira, TKO 9 months ago.
Joe Rogan needs to have the talk with Sam Alvey.
We've been saying that for a while, but this is a move up to 205. He's not cutting to 185. Do you think that plays a role here?
I feel like he just gets knocked out more.
Yeah.
He's like Luke Rockhold.
But in this fight, he doesn't have to worry about the striker as much here. He has to worry about the submission guy. So it's all whether this single leg to a double works, running the pipe works for Abreu, or if the traditionally sound takedown defense for Sam Alvey, which is what at 185, that's what Sam Alvey did. He kept it striking long enough for you to get tired to him to land that knockout shot. Low output for Sam Alvey, really is a counter striker. Depends on that left hand, but when he throws it heavy and he can throw it into the 3rd round. Limited gas tank on Alvey. Even though he's limited in strikes, he still slows down, which is really weird.
Oh my
and
gosh, he slows
it's
down.
so it can be really, really disheartening watching his fight, especially if you're betting him. But if it comes through, it can be against a Polish fighter in
Look at
Orlando.
this picture. He's so not smiling. He's like so nervous.
he just has a high ceiling as far as Sam Alvey is what I was getting to. If he wins, it's a dirty, stinky split, win or loss, or it's a knockout. But it's because guys can't get takedowns on him. So I think this is a tailor-made fight for Sam Alvey. I think once Abreu isn't able to take it down in the first round, feel like Abreu wins the first round, but then the next two, Abreu's just going to be holding on, and that's where Sam Alvey has to push forward. I can't trust that. Can't trust that'll push forward. But if he does, I think he has enough power to finish Abreu here. Give me a TKO. Round number 2, Sam Alvey. I'm not saying take this leap with me, but at plus 140, I'm going to be taking the underdog here. Give me Alvey. Who do you have in the fight and why?
I just can't trust Smiling Sam anymore. He's chinny. He doesn't take anyone down, so he does have okay takedown defense, but he hasn't really gone against somebody that is going to try to take him down. So if he's winded after the first round and doesn't have enough to fight it, somebody like Abreu can get him down. He's going to be the bigger guy, and gosh, he came in so heavy on his last fight too. You almost wonder how that's going to go. If he can lean up on him the first round and save his cardio at all and even win that round, I think he can submit Sam by round 1 or 2. I got Abreu submission round 2 right now, maybe toward the end. I think Sam could get hurt and set up for the submission. This is more of a fade on Sam. I don't really want to see him do this anymore. And I know he should be kind of in the prime of his career right now. He's just taken some brutal one-punch KOs, like brutal knockouts. So I'd like to see Sam get on out of here.
Wow.
And go to,
He ain't dead yet. He ain't still got life in there. Could I say, though, that I did watch some interviews earlier in the week with Sam Alvey, and he's got guns that I never seen before. He's carrying now.
Really, his body looks good?
His arms. I didn't see his belly, which we've seen him look a little softer at 205.
I bet you once he's in the octagon and you see him from that far away or at weigh-ins and stuff, you're going to be like, oh, he looks the same.
We'll see. I'm just saying those arms look better than I've ever seen him. So take that for what it is. You know me, I tend to be an arm guy, I guess.
I'm going to put it on, I'm moving it to Abreu submission round
3.
But I'm not
nice.
going to play it heavy.
On DraftKings, you're going to end up paying for this minus 170 favorite Abreu, 8,600 against Smiling Sam's plus 140, 7,600. I'm going to be playing Sam Alvey here in probably like 30% of my cards. I think he gets the finish if he gets the win. Abreu, I could also see hedging my bet on that 10% of cards just because you kind of got to start fading Sam Alvey. He's just not looked good in here, but I don't think Abreu's looked good in here either. So,
How old's Abreu?
26 years old.
He's just young. First fight in the UFC, I think, was his last fight.
And a decision against a good fighter.
Somebody far better than Sam Alvey. Especially at the weight class. Just saying.
On to 135 pounds, we have a profile fight with Raquel Pennington against Irene Aldana. Robles Aldana coming in with a 10-4 record, having a 3-fight winning streak, last beating Vick via submission 2 months ago. Prior to that, she beat Lucy Pudilova and Titiana Bernardo. The 31-year-old is a boxer, showing a little bit of her ground game against the black belt Vick herself in there. Aldana's hands are looking better. I always try to lump in Alexis Grasso with Aldana, and we just saw Grasso have a profile fight against a KK type of a fighter who might be on the backswing of her career right now as far as the UFC, where I'm watching the Lobo Gym fighter who's fighting alongside Grasso in there, and I'm seeing these ladies really put in work on Instagram. They're always in the gym. They're always working on their cardio specifically and strength, and I really feel like Irene is coming into her own. Again, I don't know how much I should lump her in with Grasso because that's faltered me before. And Aldana's come through as of late. The Mexican fighter at 31 years old, I think, is really in her prime right now. Likes to keep it boxing. On the ground, Pennington has better takedowns. She has better ground and pound and stronger hips. Aldana has okay takedown defense in there. Pennington, though, just hasn't shot too many shots as of late. The 9-7 fighters coming off of a 2-fight losing streak, last losing a decision to Darren Dame. Prior to that, she lost to Nunes TKO in the 4th round, where her corner had to literally make her go back out there, where she said, I'm done, guys. I'm done. And a lot of people gave her corner a lot of trouble for it. She since then came back and lost another fight. So I don't know, but I did say last week that Tisha Torres and Pennington are officially done. They're no longer together. I don't know if that's true. I saw footage yesterday of
starting rumors.
I saw Tisha with Nina and Nunes getting all ready for some show, and there was no Pennington. People were asking about Pennington. Tisha said she could join if she wants, and then other people were like, they're still together, they're still fine. But Pennington's just taking a step back as far as the social media scene is what more of the rumors are out there now. So just correcting it, just letting you guys know, because that would have played a role, her losing her fiance.
Maybe she's also taking back from social media because she lost her 2 fights. And usually we see fighters, they get all in their head and they have to step away.
Right. Center more on what they're doing, and that's the fighting part of it. But she's still training with supposed beasts out there. Pennington is 30 years old, and it really surprises me. I thought we were going to get like a 35, 36 type of role in there. I am really shocked.
I think the other way.
You think she's younger than
28.
that?
That's what I would have thought.
So Aldana being older, but I feel like younger in her fight career. I just don't think she's taken as much damage as Rocky has in the fight she's
Even
fought.
if you look at this picture that we have on our screen here,
Yep.
compared to the picture we have up here, look at how much she's aged since that pic. That's like the pic there is probably her staring with that's probably Misha.
Oh, where she beat Misha Tate.
Yeah,
Yep.
and like she just looks swollen. You can see where her face just has so much scarred.
She almost lost her leg. We remember that story.
I didn't know she almost lost it.
Yeah, she got it pinched in there, and they thought they were going to lose it. Then they saved it. Then they said she wouldn't walk, and now she's fighting again. But again, since that, she's gone 0-2 in there, having a performance against a champ in there where there's a lot of people that lose to the champ, and then there's people that say they're done. So she still has the will to fight. She's still living that fight lifestyle with all her loved ones. I got Aldana in a dirty split here, but I think Pennington has more wrinkles to the game, especially on the ground. It's all whether Aldana can get back up where she's been stuck on the bottom of other people before. So I'm going to probably end up staying clear of this one. Give me the slight favorite. I think the odds are off here, though. I think this should be more of a coin flip. Aldana being a little too favored in this position. Who do you have in this fight and why?
I have Rocky for decision. I just think Aldana's hands are not as good as the last 2 people that Pennington's trained for. So this kind of is almost like she's gotten to, which is so rare in MMA, she's almost like gotten to train for the same thing for 3 consecutive fights, which is going to make her striking that much more sharp, and she already has okay boxing. Going to decision with GDR now, as we see, is no small feat. And then going 4 rounds with Amanda Nunes, and for some reason I feel like that was short notice for Rocky. That fight was just thrown together. That was a really fast fight.
I don't think so, because she was coming back off of that leg injury.
Yeah, it was just a push-up. Like, it wasn't time for her to be fighting Amanda. But
Right.
It was just like this push that, like, Holly wasn't ready or Cyborg wasn't ready. Something else.
She might have had a win over Nunes early in Nunes' career is why they pushed that fight.
I don't think so. It was like just a weird rushed fight. I remember thinking that even at the time for Rocky, like just thrown in there. So I just think Rocky, even though she's lost her last 2, it's that much more of competition that she's gone against, and going 4 rounds with Amanda is like way more than training enough for Irene Aldana. I got Pennington decision. I think she figures it out, and I think by the time both women are burnt out in the third, I think even if it's a super close fight, the third and takedowns in the third, like you were saying, will solidify it. Pennington decision. I'm not going to go heavy on this fight.
Yeah, I agree with that one. I think this is a low scorer for sure. Aldana, being the minus 165 favorite, is going to end up being 8,400 on DraftKings against the underdog, plus 135 Pennington, 7,800. Again, this is a big fat stay away, dirty split on the way. On to 145 pounds, we have Alex Caceres coming in against Steven Peterson. Peterson coming in with a 17-8 record, being speckled in there, winning one, losing one for a while in the UFC, losing his Contender Series fight against Benito Lopez, winning in the LFA, getting asked back short notice against Davis, losing that one. He beat Matt Brissett in a split decision, And last loss to Luis Pena in a decision. Peterson is a decision type of a fighter. He is a Muay Thai striker, okay clinch, gets hit a little more than he should, but he has a high output and really keeps in his opponent's face. But what tends to happen for him, I feel like, is he still gets outstruck even if he's putting people on their back foot, and that just sways a little bit more for the judges. Peterson is teetering on that UFC caliber of fighter, and Alex Caceres has been a long-time staple at 14-12, also having a speckle record, but having it against high-level competition in there, losing to Yair Alcantara, but beating a Martin Bravo when he needed to, beating a Rolando Dai, knocking him out. When he gets higher level, even little level higher competition, he goes to dirty splits like he did with Wang, but losing a submission to Jason Knight, I mean, Caceres is one of these guys that's really hard to bet on. His longtime staple is also being one of these guys that fought with Jorge Masvidal. He was fighting with Kimbo Slice in the streets. We always like a mention of that. He tends to keep it striking. He's a tornado in there. He'll throw a lot of spinning heel kicks, a lot of spinning back fists, has a good gas tank, and is Gumby-ish on the ground. Caceres is underrated as far as his takedown defense, but he can get submitted. Doesn't have to worry about that here against Peterson. But I do think that Caceres has a distinct advantage on the ground against Peterson. It's whether Caceres uses that fight IQ to shoot those good takedowns and get him to the ground. He tends to not to, though. Caceres has multiple times against other high-level guys never shot in the fight and lost because of it, because he's like, well, I was having fun and feeling the flow. And he's since turned around and said he's trained a lot harder since then, but it's just somebody that you can't trust for any good reason. He is the slight favorite because he does have a direct path on the ground. Striking, I think it stays pretty even. I don't give the power to Peterson, but I just give the volume, which I think Caceres matches. I got another dirty-ass split here. I'm going to be low-owned on both of these guys, but give me Peterson as another underdog here.
Wow.
I think
crazy.
He has more volume, but I think it's the volume that plays the role here. I don't think that he's necessarily the better fighter. Who do you have in this fight and why?
I think almost this is a gimme for Caceres. He's an exciting fighter, and he tends to be on a win one, lose one. I think the UFC like him enough to try to give him one. Steven Peterson is one of those guys that's like Bochniak to me. He's like a punching bag that the UFC just gives to their tall, lanky guys to make him look good. And he's one of those guys that gets hit like 4 times in a row and then slaps his face and says, "Come on!" And you're like, dude, you're getting beat up.
Yep.
Like, yeah, I got to go with Caceres here. I just think Peterson's just a very one-dimensional fighter, and by the end of this, it'll be one of those good showings of Bruce Leroy that we're like, okay, maybe Bruce Leroy has it together now. Maybe he's going to be on the streak we keep expecting the kid to go on because he seems like he has all the tools, and then it's just like, he falls flat on his face. Not that the Kron, everyone, would have lost to Kron, but still, it's just like he just can't get it going. He just can't get it going. So I'm going Caceres decision.
We've been talking about camps lately, and here we have a profile matchup of a new up-and-coming camps that we really tend to like here with the MMA Lab and Caceres making the move there a few fight camps ago, and Steven Peterson coming out of Fortis MMA, local Texas team where we've been having a lot of people winning out of there. Do you feel like the camps...
Who's out of Fortis? Who else?
Peterson. Well, Diego Ferreira, Chason, couple light heavyweights, okay. some other prospects that were like, people to watch.
It is kind of scary that he's the local guy fighting out of Texas, and I think it's going to go to decision too, because we saw how that hometown goes. If it's even close, they'll give it to the hometown guy.
Give me the underdog in a dirty split. We're going to have to watch weigh-ins as well for a few of these. Not necessarily this bout, but I feel like the crowd at weigh-ins, if it's allowed, or just kind of like the hype around it, plays a role as well. Maybe I'm digging a little too deep.
Decision, but I do see that there's another point for Peterson being the hometown guy, especially because I was just telling you, they don't care about Americans. They care about Texans.
Yeah, great point. Great point, especially being the local Fortis MMA guys. So everywhere you can get it. You're going to end up wanting to follow at LaTB MMA on Twitter. on Instagram at LaTB_MMA as well. You can find me at Zol Tonight at Weak Neck Baby. We're going to be putting out other bets. We're going to be putting out our fight cards. We are going to be having, I feel like, a good amount of, I feel like we're splitting up underdogs here, and there's some good parlays.
We're all over the place.
We're everywhere. I think it's going to be a pretty fun night of fights as far as being profitable. We're going to have a fun fight week ahead of us. I feel like these fights that we're talking about, there's a lot of potential for, in a few years, we're going to be like, remember how good of a showcase they had that one time? And fun profile fights. If you see the crown, it means we're probably hitting them heavy. If you see the plus money puesta, you're definitely on, what percentage is that at right now?
100.
Oh my gosh. So.
Yeah, and always plus money. Always. That's the point. We're not trying to, has nothing to do with me. But
True.
Sometimes I agree with it here, and it just happens to be that, but I don't have anything to do with the pick. So that's not going to be on mine. But the plus money puesta stamp, if you're following us on Insta, you know exactly what we're talking about. You said the crown. That means we're playing them heavy. I think they're pretty self-explanatory, a lot of the cards, with even like sometimes the X is small or big, or crown is big or small, how sure we are of it. The dirty split.
Dirty, take that for what you will. If you're going to go one way or the other, ooh, it's iffy. Dirty split scares me.
Low scoring. That's what I think. Anytime
Yep.
I see low scoring, it means stay away from this fight for both fighters because it's low scoring. Yeah, never the dirty splits high ever.
But sometimes the dirty splits gives you a valuable opponent because it's like 7-3 and they are low scoring, but it was 7-3 players. So you're like, oh, there's value there as far as DraftKings.
So then a dirty split could also be a dog or pass.
I like that.
If you were going to play it. So that's all the info, I think.
That's all you got to do. Just give us a like. Tell a friend if you can. You're getting free money out of it. On to the main event. We're going to end up starting it off at 265 pounds in a rematch between Andrei Arlovsky versus Ben Rothwell. Rothwell coming off of that PED suspension, being 36-11, the longtime veteran lost to Ivanov 4 months ago in a fight that a lot of people said he won. Prior to that, losing the decision to Dos Santos 3 years ago, but Rothwell really showed a bit of that rust. Being 37 years old, heavyweights have a little bit longer of life in there, but Ivanov, underrated type of grappler in there, can make slow, dirty fights. You know that we've been talking about here for a while. For not all the good reasons, Ivanov gets it done in there, and Ben Rothwell succumbed to that. When he uses his wrestling, he tends to do the best in there. When Rothwell gets on top of you, he has good ground and pound, but the thing is, he's really just stayed as a striking fighter. A lot of people realized that Rothwell really likes to get it to the ground, and he's even been exploited striking at times in there. The first time they fought, Andrei Arlovsky won via TKO in Strikeforce. I mean, going on 7-8 years ago now. So there's been a lot that has changed since then. Supposedly Arlovsky's chin was done. We've seen as of late it might not be as much as it was. The 40-year-old has lived up to that heavyweight moniker that they just have a lot longer life in there. He's coming off of a 4-fight losing streak.
Has he though?
True. He's Jackson Wink, longtime fighter. It is a 4-fight losing streak, even though he lost a split decision to Walt Harris. That was overturned because Harris popped on that weed. So
that's such bullshit.
That one's bullshit. PEDs, okay, overturn it. Weed? That ain't even a drug. That ain't even a drug anymore. So last losing to Augusto Sakai in a dirty split 2 months ago, that was a fight that Andrei Arlovsky won. I ended up cashing out. I had Sakai, but that was just, you can't bet on Sakai ever again after that type of showing. Andrei Arlovsky tends to get into dirty splits, though. I see that little Raggedy Ann baby all over this. I mean, he likes to keep it striking, has a hard right hand. Okay, gas tank, you're not going to take Andrei Arlovsky down easy. If you do, he gets right back up. So I feel like this turns into a kickboxing match, pretty much a boxing match. And I do think that Arlovsky is the better technical striker, but it just turns into a very slow-paced wall and stall. There are going to be a lot of clinching, a lot of changing positions. I think there's a super low score. I think it's a dirty split. I'm going to give it to the younger, fresher fighter a little bit, but as you were saying earlier, I've been asking for Andrei Arlovsky to get out of here for a long time, and I hope he does after this one. I hope he doesn't get beat down too hard. I'm still staying away
He
from
ain't getting
Rothwell.
out of here. He even fought 2 months ago, and he's fighting again. And then he fought like 6 months before that, and then he fought like 10 months before. It's like he fights every 4 months.
He doesn't do bonuses in his contracts. It's like 300,000 flat rate is why he's doing this.
He's just like getting as many in as he can, and why he has a head on his shoulders.
Yep.
I'm going with Rothwell decision. I just think he's selecting it and treating his body a little better, and eventually Andre's body is going to say, I don't want to do this anymore. And it seems to me like it has. Ben, I think there's still a little more gasoline left in that tank, where I agree with you. Andre Arlovsky should get out of here. Rothwell, decision, low scoring. Could he finish? How much is he?
Sure. Minus 200 favorite. Rothwell, 9,000 on DraftKings.
Ooh, I don't know if that's worth it.
I agree. There's no way you can put Rothwell on anywhere. Maybe 1%, but Andre Arlovsky, 7,200, the plus 160 underdog. It's just not something that you can really be confident in either side there, and for all the wrong reasons. On to 155 pounds, we have Francisco Trinaldo coming in against Alexander Hernandez. Hernandez jumping on the scene with a 10-2 record, getting a quick finish of Dariush, coming in and beating Aban Mercier in a decision 11 months ago. He mopped up the floor in Mercier. Hernandez coming in as a big underdog there. But we both had the underdog of Donald Cerrone against Hernandez, or was this one of those...
Oh, I don't think I ever jumped on the Hernandez bandwagon. I think I stuck with what I know.
With Cerrone, but I jumped off of...
Someone's going to play me.
Right.
Being like, I'm going with Hernandez. F Donald. He needs to get on out of here. And you'd be like, what? No, I'm just kidding. I
feel like we both had Cerrone, and he was one of our big underdogs we had there, just because of the veteranship, the real skill, and people just undervaluing there. Hernandez has shown out really well. A hard right hand, a good cardio in there, but he also showed that he's inexperienced. At 26 years old, he's gone back on the Hawani Hour and talked about what happened in that last fight and other interviews, and he's made really valid points. He's like, I understood what happened to me. I'm training to not do that. I'm getting my cardio even better than it was, and I need to understand that just because someone doesn't go down, you can't blow the load, which all great stuff, because he said Cerrone didn't go down, which he did. He cracked Cerrone, swarmed him. Cerrone wasn't out of it, and all of a sudden you saw that tide turn. It was the first time Hernandez had been finished in there, and because he is 26 years old, this is where we see those leaps. We talk about it all the time. Mm-hmm. This also wasn't 5 months ago. We usually like to tell these guys to take 6 months to 8 months on a KO. This was more of a kill you by 1,000 cuts. It wasn't a one-hitter quitter. He went down to body shots, accumulation of shots. He did get beat up, but compared to some of those Ben Askren type of knockouts, it wasn't that bad. So I think he's recovering. I think we see a big jump in Hernandez, but he's going to have his hands full with the longtime veteran, 40-year-old Trinaldo. He's been a guy we like to bet on. He's as strong as an ox in there at 23-6. He last came in off of a finish of Dunham, who we all knew was done for a long time. He lost a decision to James Vick. Done a long time ago. He beat Jim Miller in a decision, prior to that losing to Kevin Lee in a submission in a fight that he was winning, and also losing to Felder in a TKO. Trinaldo, tons of power, southpaw striker, beautiful left down the middle, good knees, good clinch, comes out of that jungle fight scene, but he's been training over at Tata Fight Team for a while. I think he even goes to ADT every once in a while. The 40-year-old used to have gas tank issues, really has sewn him up even as of late. We didn't really see it much against Dunham, but he can have tons of power in the third round, and that's where he really will catch guys. His chin has tended to be pretty rock solid. That submission that Lee got him in with, it was really a kick that set up that rear naked choke. So he didn't fully go out in there, and Hernandez can't hurt him. The thing is, the crafty veteranship of the Muay Thai striker here. It's hard to take Trinaldo down, and I don't think that Hernandez really utilizes his takedowns well enough. On the ground, I do think Hernandez is better on top, and we saw that in that Mercier fight. Mercier is one of the better grapplers in there, and he really put a pace on him and stifled him. So I think if Hernandez can get this to the ground, he can just keep it there, land a lot of rapid punches. But the trickiness of Trinaldo always keeps him in the fight. I think the odds are off here. Minus 170 for Hernandez is a little too steep. I think this should be more of a coin flip. I am staying with Hernandez's decision because I do think he can push a higher pace. He is the American here. I do think it's a 29-28 type of a bout. Give me Hernandez. Trinaldo's someone that I got to be a little more tentative. You got to watch out for more in there.
I agree with everything you're saying, and I tend to go with Trinaldo, and I don't think I ever go with Hernandez. I tend to be wrong on him. I'm going with Hernandez here. I do think this fight is going to go to decision, and we might even say it's an egregious, but I think Hernandez, when he comes out, it's going to be when the auditorium is shot out of the cannon. Mm-hmm. People are going to lose their mind for Hernandez. He could be the biggest star in there of the night. He's the local guy.
True.
Everybody... He could make a run for it. He has the skill set to make a run in the UFC, but I love what you're saying. Trinaldo is a forever dark horse, and he's of the age, and especially in this weight class where you would think that we'd be like, yeah, but he's eating that horse meat.
Yeah.
He's fine.
Yeah.
So Hernandez decision, and I also could see that Trinaldo could take the latter rounds. I think Hernandez could come out hot and blow his wad, and then Trinaldo's...
That's what I'm saying, 29-28 type of a fight.
I like everything that you're saying. I got Hernandez decision as well, but even the line being a little off, it should be the coin flip.
It should be way, way closer. 9,000 or 8,900 for Hernandez on DraftKings against 7,300 for the plus 140 underdog Trinaldo. I'm not going to be playing Hernandez too many spots here. Maybe that 10%. I actually see myself playing Trinaldo a bit more just because he has that type of power that the only way you shut down a Texan in a Texas auditorium is putting him in a coffin. So that'd be heavy on the points. I just say Trinaldo has that type of a acumen in there. That's a fun one, though. I'm excited for that one.
I think the whole main card is fire.
Absolute fire. One that I cannot wait for is going to be at 155 pounds. We had James, the Texecutioner, Vick coming in against Daniel, the Hangman Hooker. Who would you much rather have take you out? Who do you want? The Texecutioner or the Hangman?
I'm going with the Australian.
No, I'm sorry. If you were to be put to death.
Oh, I thought you meant on a date.
By far. James Vick, yeah. Yeah, James Vick looks scary looking. But if you were to be on death row, what way would you? The Hangman, the Texecutioner, what's the way to do it?
Hanging or or Texecutioner. Does that seem
probably
like a big
you.
axe?
They probably shoot you.
Oh, see, I see a big axe.
I can see that too.
Or like a guillotine.
Right?
Ugh, hanging seems pretty awful.
Horrible. I agree with that.
So
clean one and done.
James Vick to take me out of this world, and Daniel Hooker to take me out on a date.
I agree with that. Make that a +1. Take us both out, Daniel Hooker. The New Zealand fighter's coming out with a 17-8 record, coming off of a loss after having a good little streak in there against Edson Barbosa 7 months ago. That was one of those too tough for your own good. We were talking about it Pennington earlier with Nunes. Mm-hmm. This was one with Hooker where it was like, nah, dude.
It's brutal.
You're too young for this. At 29 years old, live to fight another day. You already lost the fight. You don't need to be put in a coffin. And Edson Barbosa finally did in there. Hopefully, Hooker learned a lot from this, but it was just a different level of striker in there. Usually, these Muay Thai guys out of New Zealand do pretty well, and Hooker's really been looking good coming from that scene.
Have you ever seen somebody's body take more damage in a fight? Just somebody's body being able to put up with
That's
it.
what I was about to say. Yes, because it's a fold.
I've never seen anybody take more damage in the midsection than Daniel Hooker in that fight.
It was a beating.
It was insane.
Absolutely brutal. But Hooker has great clinch on the ground, getting ever so better, especially moving up to 155 pounds. His ground game is just evolving. He's not that good off of his back. the actual advantage in wrestling, I'd give to the Texecutioner here, James Vick. He's got a better shot and is trickier off of his back. But the striking, I give a big advantage to Hooker here. His just knees up the middle with his crisper boxing. He puts combinations better together. His takedown defense is a little rough. That's where, on the ground, this is where it's the most interesting because standing-wise, James Vick hurts a lot of people, but it's usually because of his size. It's not necessarily his skill. The 6'3" fighter usually allows his big knees to just pick him up. Where against Hooker, who understands the range, a rudimentary striker like Vick, that is just tends to be a boxer, he's going to get pieced up if it turns into a kickboxing match, in my point of view. On the ground, Vick needs to get this on the ground, get some of those chokes going if he wants to have a shot in here. But I think that before we even get there, Daniel Hooker learned a lot from where he came from. I think that Vick is, if anything, has shown that his chin's starting to wear a little bit. At 6'3", we were just talking about it with Lad in the other fight. Vick is one of these guys who sat down at interviews and been like, yeah, I bet on myself and yeah, bet against me. I'll be fine. And then he got knocked out of the last 2 fights because it's just, he's getting older at 32 years old and
he didn't get knocked out his last fight, but the fight
fight before. But either way, the local Texas favorite, Lloyd Irving disciple in there, is going to be the hometown favorite. But I think, as I was saying before, you need to finish him in order to get him out of there in Texas. And I think that Daniel Hooker does it in round number 2. Who do you have in this fight and why?
Everything that you're dead on. The problem with James Vick to me, he needs to be Michael Chiesa. He needs to be up at 170, and I think we see a whole new James Vick, and I actually think he will get to make a run. He is way too tall, 6'3" at 155, and he's one of those guys that looks like dead on the scale. You're like, holy
Skeletor.
Shit, he looks awful, and that's why he's so chinny. I think it's the exact reason. You want to get swarmed, you want to get clipped. Daniel Hooker's a guy that can do that. He can also give you a brutal knee to the body or an inside elbow in a clinch. I think he's a scary guy to get on the inside with. Yeah, I think James Vick is better on the ground, but I don't think James Vick is better on the ground than Gilbert Burns. So I think Daniel Hooker's kind of okay here. I'm hoping he took enough time off with the Edson Barboza KO. And what I remember about that, he didn't quit, did he? Didn't he, his corner, did he?
I thought he got finished. I thought he got a flatline.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, I thought he finally got knocked out with a punch, but it was like, yeah, of course.
I thought he was just one of those guys that just kept getting beat and beat.
Knocked down. He had like 5 knockdowns.
No, like just brutal kick to the stomach. Oh, and he was so bloody. I'll have to watch it again. I got Daniel Hooker right now. I do think he can finish it. I don't know if it'll be so fast. It almost better be fast because I feel like James Vick is one of those guys that he's just not beating anybody of the same kind of caliber. Hooker, KO, round 2.
Whoa, that's a perfect call by the both of us, or we both agree exactly in the round. We usually like to throw a prop on there. Round 2 finish. It's going to be a little bit of money in there.
I think that could be a good call.
I do like that prop off the top of my head right now. On DraftKings, you're going to be paying for the slight minus 170 favorite. 8,500 for Hooker against James Vick, 7,700 on DraftKings. I see myself only playing Hooker out of both of those fighters.
I might have James Vick on a card. I'm probably only going to only play like 4 cards. I'll have James Vick on 1 and Daniel Hooker on 2. I won't go crazy either way. I just don't know if it's going to be a heavy night for me.
This is a weird fight. There's definitely a weird fight night.
Oh, we about to talk about my linchpin, though.
Wow. Interesting. At 265 pounds, we have Greg Hardy coming in against Juan Adams, the Kragan himself.
Yep, Greg Hardy everywhere. No, I'm just
The 5-1 fighter's got in his first loss ever, coming off of the Contender Series, winning his fight there via TKO, beating De La Roca in a TKO, last losing to Boulard, who you were big on. I was telling you, there's no way Adams loses his fight. He's a better wrestler everywhere. Boulard won that fight via decision, even though he lost 70 significant strikes to 40. 30 more strikes for Adams. It was just those takedowns there. And Boulard didn't get a contract after that at heavyweight.
That's Boulard shit.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with it, but Boulard had really proven that he doesn't even want to try to strike with anybody anymore. He was just going to rush you in there and get you to the ground, but not the biggest submission acumen as well. So interesting at heavyweight where they really need people. They were like, nah, we don't need you, buddy. And he beat Juan Adams. So Juan Adams is susceptible to the wrestling, his gas tank a bit, but as far as his output, one of the highest outputs you're ever going to see for heavyweights ever. Juan Adams will throw 70 strikes in the second round.
Isn't
lot of
he
his
like
fights.
a state champ or something?
He's a
Crazy in
D1 wrestler.
No.
D1 wrestler. I don't think he was ever a big champ in it, but Adams, it's not he's got good punches. He's growing at 27 years old everywhere. He cuts to make weight. He's got good strikes. Not tons of power for a heavyweight, but he really can keep that pace up really high. The biggest issue I have with Juan Adams is that immediately after the weigh-in where he has to cut down to 265, he goes and buys an entire box of sweet cakes, zebra heads, oatmeal cookies, a bunch of sugary drinks, and eats them all night long. It's been proven time and time again. I've seen it, and it's just when your body is the tool that you work with, that sludges you up. Even though he's still throwing a high output in here, it just proves that there's levels for him to grow, because any of the top fighters, I guarantee you, don't do that. I guarantee you any top 5 fighter does not do that.
What about John Jones?
Does not do that. It's cocaine. It's different. So Juan Adams has an advantage if he gets this to the ground immediately, because Greg Hardy has been taken down. Crowder came in. The 4-1 Hardy came against Crowder, his only loss ever. Crowder got him down, and Hardy was able to get up, but that was against the non-wrestler who came in late in life into MMA. So his last fight against Smokliakov, you can't take into any account. Dana White said, if we did set up fights, that would have been a setup fight. Not a punch was thrown. We didn't even want to buy those shirts.
Yeah.
We knew. We were booing at the win because it was the opponent came in and ducked, and it was an over fight. The super hard thing here is just whether you can trust Juan Adams here. I do think he gets the decision. Striking-wise, the more power, one-punch knockout power goes to Hardy, but we've seen other heavyweights able to take it. We haven't seen Juan Adams necessarily hurt in there, but when he gets gas, he does eat punches. So, got to worry about the athleticism. I think the line's right, -115. This is the epitome of a coin flip, but if I were to see a knockout, it would be Hardy. If I see a decision, it's going to be Adams. So, DraftKings, I kind of got to go with Hardy. I don't
think that at all. I don't see a route for victory for Greg Hardy.
I got Juan Adams' decision, but it's a heavyweight fight. I'm going to have exposure to either side here.
I could see Juan Adams going in, actually clinching up full bear hug and doing just a turn down and pulling down Greg Hardy in a nice, easy.
I hope so.
I see Adams winning everywhere. I think he's the better striker, the better wrestler. I actually think that Greg Hardy doesn't really knock out anyone. The last fight was a complete setup, and then he couldn't finish Crowder at all for the most boring fight ever, where we actually thought Crowder would come back and win it. So I don't know if Greg Hardy is knocking out anyone. He's super out of shape that I even feel like a guy, the way Juan Adams is built compared to the way Greg Hardy's built, you would never, and if I told you one of these guys ate 100 zebra cakes before this fight, you would bet Greg Hardy 100%. 100%. So I got Juan Adams. I think he's going to finish it in round 2, and that's me giving Greg Hardy so much more respect than I actually have for him. I do not think he's a MMA fighter, and I sure as shit don't think he's an MMA fighter on the Kraken's level. Give me the Kraken as my linchpin.
Hardy is training out of ATT.
Yep.
He's training with good guys. There is a bit of a narrative in the backstory because my boy Juan Adams has been calling out Greg Hardy, throwing out that hashtag fuck Greg Hardy hard long before he was in the UFC. Juan Adams has been a guy who was asking for it.
In the way. Like, don't you want to fight the easiest fight in your division? Who's the easier fight than Greg Hardy? The other guys he fought probably aren't in the UFC anymore.
I was going to say Smokliakov or Crowder are easier fights.
Bueller is so much more advanced than Greg Hardy. It's insane. It's insane. So I'm not even worried about Juan Adams at all here.
On DraftKings, 8,100 against Greg Hardy's 8,100. This is the epitome of a coin flip. I'm going to be putting them, I'm exposing myself to both of them.
I will put Greg Hardy nowhere.
So wait for those DMs, boys. To the co-main event, we're going to be staying at the 100.
Women.
What?
You used to wait for those DMs, boys.
Oh, because I'm going to expose myself to them. I'm going to send them DMs.
Oh. I thought you were like talking about bets and you were talking about people on Twitter that follow you. I'm like, it could be ladies that follow you for bets.
No, I don't want to get sued. The guys will be like, oh, yeah, whatever. So, moving on to the...
Greg Hardy seems like he might like that.
That's what I'm saying. They'll be like, oh, cool, thanks, guys.
Juan Adams has his bachelor's degree in computer science, I think.
Good for him. He's not doing that math in those sweet cakes. Staying at the co-main event, 265 pounds.
And he's out of Houston to boot.
Yep.
Woo!
True.
Never mind. I thought that they were going to be the loudest when Hernandez walked out, and then James Vick, and I'm like, now they'll be louder for James Vick. And now Juan Adams, I'm like, whew.
But
Texas
Hardy
is going to blow the roof off.
Hardy went to the Pro Bowl for the Cowboys. The Cowboys! That's like Texas gold. That's
Is he from Texas?
No, but he went to the Pro Bowl for the Texans, and they all for the Cowboys. They love, Texas is America's team, isn't that what they say?
Maybe.
Maybe, I don't know.
But I also think, I don't know what kind of football player he was for Texas.
Pro Bowler.
Whether they love him or if he left the team beforehand, and then they're like, fuck Greg Hardy.
The
he
assault
went
charge.
for a different team.
He didn't.
He always played with
until he got dismissed from the assault charge.
That's why they want him there. And all of Greg Hardy has these 3 people he travels with, these 3 white people. Do you remember them? They're no one else was cheering in the whole arena except for this little group of people.
Are you talking about last night on Dana White Contender Series fight?
No, on Greg Hardy when we were watching him in.
Oh, that's right. Yes, when here in Fort Lauderdale.
Yes,
right.
In Fort Lauderdale.
That's true. I do remember the only people were cheering for him was his corner with 2 other fans out there.
His coworker.
True. True.
Right.
So, all right, to the co-main event at 265 pounds, we have Alexei Olenek versus Walt Harris. We gave you a quick one on the last show, giving you a hot pick and a hot take. Mine's not moving away from much of what I said last time. Going back to the tape, as you were saying, Alexei needs that Ezekiel choke or to get it to the ground. If he cannot get it to the ground, he has trouble with people striking. The 52-12-1 longtime veteran is coming off of a loss to Alistair Overeem, TKO. Anybody's going to get finished by Overeem. He, though, beat Hunt in that Ezekiel choke, beat Albini as well, lost to Blades, DKO, Dr. Stoppage, where Alexei almost got a DQ in there because that was close to being a ground strike. But against Walt Harris is 12-7. He's getting a fight overturned against Arlovsky for that weed charge, coming back and beating Spivak in a TKO knees 2 months ago. Walt Harris has been at ATT as well. He's getting ready with Hardy. He's a big boy. He's really been proven that his takedown defense at 36 years old has grown, and he knows that he wants to keep it striking. I remember seeing footage when Horiguchi was down there 8-9 years ago. Harris has always been at one of the best teams of all, and I think he's finally putting it all together. I think we've said it for a long time here. Heavyweights tend to have their prime just like their careers a little bit later in life, and 36 I feel like is that seed spot. I don't feel like, well, with the camp that Harris is coming in with, they know that they can't go to the ground for anything. So if he wraps around to get that Ezekiel, I feel like Harris knows he's going to keep it standing, back up, run, do that Darren Elkins, stay away from the ground, and if he keeps it there, it's only a matter of time. I think I'm going to go heavy with this one. Give me Harris TKO round number 1 or 2. I was thinking 2, might be thinking 1 just because I don't think Alexei likes the strikes at all, and will even try to get a DQ win in there. Thank you, Mr. Olenek, for the fights. You have a very nice wife. She is taller than a lot of people I've ever seen in my life. So, thanks for the handshake, but give me Walt Harris TKO round number 2.
The people that Olenek's beating aren't as good as Walt Harris. And the people that Walt Harris is beating are not nearly as good as Olenek. This is a really weird fight for me. And the people that Olenek's losing to are better than Walt Harris. So I really have nothing to go on here. I know Walt Harris is pretty good with his hands, so I like that with the Curtis Blades for a kind of comparable fight. Walt Harris, completely different fighter than Alistair Overeem, but Alistair Overeem's kind of cashed in my opinion. So I think Walt Harris kind of can sneak in here and do some work. I don't know if it's just the I can't even believe Alexei Olenek is still rolling through here with this same party favor.
Right?
But so it makes me wonder, because I'm like, geez, man, for the last 2 years, he's just been doing the damn thing. If people want to throw hands, if they can defend it at all, then they're good. They're good against him. I don't know if Walt Harris can defend it. What kind of big wrestler do they have over at American Top Team for him to...
Great point. Smokliakov, the other guy that fought Hardy.
Spivak,
he knocked out. Spitz.
Daniel Spitz. I'm going to go Alexei here. I'm going to go submission round 1. I could easily change that to knockout round 1, but I think that fight gets finished in round 1. And knockout round 1 for Walt Harris. I think it's knockout. It's flash.
I agree.
It's the flash.
That's what I was going to say. I think that you actually can expose yourself to both of these guys as far as DraftKings, because this ain't going all 3 rounds. At least we hope not, because that's going to be a disgusting fight if it does.
Agreed.
So I do see it's either a finish, first round Harris. So I think both are live. You can't stack these guys. Walt Harris is going to be 8,700 on DraftKings, the minus 160 favorite, against Olenek, 7,500, the plus 130 underdog. Yeah, both of them are live here. I'm going to go probably 30%, because either one can score very highly in that first round.
I think that's a good call.
On to the main event at welterweight. We have Rafael dos Anjos coming in against Leon Edwards. Edwards coming off of a full 3-piece in a soda, being the last loss of Jorge Masvidal. In the back room, the 17-3 fighter last beat Gunnar Nelson in a split decision 3 months ago. Prior to that, he beat Donald Cerrone, Sabata in their TKO, Barberina. Vincente Luque is probably the fight that I give him the most credit for. Cerrone was in a weird spot in there, but Leon Edwards is a Jamaican fighter fighting out of the UK. He's really 27 years old. He's finally getting it all better. His only loss in the UFC at 17-3 is to Kamaru Usman, the current champ, and he got out-wrestled there. And specifically, Leon Edwards said a long time ago, as soon as he realized what he needed to do against Usman, he went to it, and now he's using wrestling to really dominate most of his fights. His striking's always been good. He has good knees in there, good uppercuts, crisp 2 and 3 punch combinations. But now that Edwards has really implemented solid fundamental takedowns with heavy top pressure, he's just able to outpace a lot of guys, outposition them, and really coast into heavy decided decisions. But against Dos Anjos here, he's got to worry about a high-level black belt off of his back on the ground. The former 155 champ is 29-11. He's got good heavy strikes. He can submit anybody. There's definitely 170-pounders he's been able to exploit in there, but we usually say wrestling can be that neutralizer. And against Dos Anjos here, I don't think that it's necessarily the wrestling of Edwards, but this is one of those times where against Magny, who's notoriously been a small 170-pounder, he was able to work against in there. But against Covington, or a Lawler, who is not the biggest guy, but against an Usman or a Covington, who are also big wrestlers, but bigger people in general, that's where he had the most trouble. And I see Leon Edwards mimicking both of those same guys, because he's kind of gone to that game plan, and it's the size. It's genuinely the size. I don't think that Dos Anjos can knock out Edwards striking, and on the ground I do think he can submit him, but I think that Edwards is going to be able to stifle anything on the ground and just coast out to a 5-round decision here. I do think this is live for a stack, because I think that even if Dos Anjos is losing, he doesn't stop moving, he doesn't stop punching, he can get outworked and still keep punching and go in 5 rounds. I'm going to be playing both guys here. I got Edwards in the decision. I don't think this finishes, honestly. I don't see either guy being a decided finisher here. Who do you have in this fight, and why?
I got Edwards as a decision as well. I think they're kind of similar in the hands. I got Edwards better in the ground, or more the wrestling over Dos Anjos' jiu-jitsu at all. I've been trying to fade Dos Anjos for too long, and Edwards is a dark horse in the division to me. I just think he's a guy that can kind of sneak up and not get too much notice, and then all of a sudden everyone's going to be complaining about how is Edwards fighting for the title? How is that? Because he's awesome and he's doing everything right and he's getting better and better every time he steps in the octagon, and his ring IQ is amazing. His heart's good. We haven't seen him do a 5-round, have we?
I don't believe so.
That's the nerve-wracking part with me. Dos Anjos, I feel like, when's the last time that we haven't seen him do a 5-round? Everything seems like a 5-round. So that's the part that makes me the most nervous here is even if Rafael pulls out one of the first 3 rounds, I think he can kind of solidify the last 2 just by laying out points. But he's also another guy that will just put his arms down and block and kind of get picked apart in there for the last 2 rounds. I think this is going to be a great stand-up fight. I don't see myself really playing. Rafael has good hands, fast. I see it staying a stand-up fight the entire time. I would try to get Rafael down if I'm Edwards, like you're saying, like the Colby Covington or Usman style, and just kind of stifle him out, take away that power, and then make it a point fight for the rest of the time. Gosh, I think Edwards' cardio is going to be all right just because I don't recall Rafael really having great cardio the longer the fight goes. I'm going to go Edwards. I like your idea of the decision on that.
How do you feel like you played on DraftKings Edwards being 8,300 against the 7,900 for the former champion Dos Anjos?
I feel kind of comfortable playing Leon Edwards there. I don't want to play Rafael. I'm kind of ready, in my opinion, for Rafael to get on out of there.
Interesting. I feel like he's still playable. He is 34 years old.
Oh gosh, he is not
long fight career.
Yeah, you are so right. I apologize. He still has some fights left. Everyone. Definitely. I thought he was like 38. He just looks worn.
In a 5-round fight against Covington, he still scored 70 points.
Yeah.
That's better than some winners on there. So I think that you can.
That's a really good point.
I think you can. But against Usman, he only scored 35. So I don't think that Edwards. I think it's more of a Covington type of fight instead of Usman.
I agree with you.
So that's an interesting one. We got all sorts of plays. Be sure to find us wherever you can on that Twitter. You're going to be able to get us at LaTB_MMA. We're making money. We have so many underdogs. Anything left for this high-priced fight over out of the San Antonio scene? We're going to Texas, out of the Alamo.
I know we told you that we'd be on time, and guess what? We're on time. So remember the Alamo, and remember to tune in on Sunday for the morning after. Thanks again for listening. Bye-bye.
Let me!